7 years after her disappearance, she emerged from beneath the neighbor's home. For 7 long years, Marcus Riley lived across the street from the house that held his daughter captive, and he never knew. The night Serenity vanished, laughter still echoed from the backyard barbecue. Police said she wandered off. Neighbors whispered about neglect, but Marcus carried a guilt too deep for words. He'd stared at Gerald Boone's crumbling porch more times than he could count, yet never once thought to look beneath it. Until one humid afternoon, a dog's sudden barking, a flash of movement behind the crawlspace vents, and the unmistakable flicker of eyes too familiar to forget, forced him to stop and see. And then, 7 years after the worst day of their lives, she crawled out of the shadows. She didn't recognize her name. She didn't recognize him. Because everything she remembered was a lie. The cicadas were screaming again. Marcus Riley sat on his porch in a sweat-damp t-shirt, watching the late afternoon sun melt against the rooftops of Elmsbrook, Mississippi. The town was quiet, too quiet, just the way Gerald Boone liked it. The old prepper hadn't changed much in the years since Serenity vanished. Still kept to himself, still never waved back, still walked his yard with that limp and a loaded stare. Marcus had seen him earlier, crouched by the edge of his porch, hammering something into the wood lattice that bordered the crawlspace. Gerald always said it was just for raccoons. Marcus didn't believe that even back then. 7 years. That was how long it had been since Serenity disappeared. 6 years old, barefoot in a pink sundress, laughing as she chased a soap bubble across the lawn. Denise had been inside preparing fruit punch. Marcus had gone to grab an extra folding chair from the garage. When he came back out, the backyard was silent. Serenity was gone. Elmsbrook PD had shown up fast, but not fast enough. The search party was sluggish, the media attention brief, the whispers brutal. Shoulda kept a better eye. She was always wandering. You know how some of these kids get in neighborhoods like this. Marcus had memorized every word of every cold case file, had driven across state lines following dead-end tips, had stared into the woods behind Boone's house 1,000 times, asking himself why he didn't do more. Today, something felt different. He heard it again, a faint thump, then a scrape. The sound came from Boone's house, from under it. Marcus leaned forward in his chair, heart starting to stir. A large German shepherd he hadn't seen before was chained in Boone's front yard, pacing anxiously. Its ears pricked toward the house, then back toward Marcus. Thump, scrape, pause. He stood. Denise had always told him not to obsess, not to let the grief hollow him out like it did so many parents on the news. But Marcus knew the difference between paranoia and instinct. And something was scratching at his instinct right now, like nails against drywall. He crossed the street slowly, eyes locked on the dog. It didn't growl, just watched. The lattice around the crawlspace had been patched up again, fresh nails, new slats of wood. Boone had covered the access panel with a wooden crate and stacked bricks on top. Odd, considering this side of the house faced no street, no foot traffic. Just woods and quiet. Marcus stepped closer, then he heard it. A voice, faint, muffled, childlike. "Can I come out now?" He froze. It was barely audible, almost swallowed by the drone of cicadas and the thick southern heat. But it was there, a whisper coated in dust and fear. Marcus backed away, fast. He didn't knock on Boone's door. He didn't call out. He ran, across the street, up the porch steps, through the screen door. "Denise!" His wife appeared from the hallway, startled. "What is it?" "I heard something." "Under Boone's house. A kid, Dee. I swear to God." Her eyes widened. "You're sure?" "I know what I heard." She didn't question him further. Instead, she grabbed the cordless phone from the kitchen counter and dialed. Marcus returned to the porch, watching Boone's house like a hawk. The dog had sat down now, tail twitching. The lattice remained still, but Marcus's mind was racing. What if he'd ignored that sound? What if he'd just chalked it up to squirrels or pipework? Sirens didn't take long. 2 patrol cars, 1 marked cruiser, and the county sheriff's SUV rolled into the cul-de-sac within 10 minutes. Boone emerged from his house just as they arrived, arms raised, expression unreadable. "Everything all right, officers?" Marcus didn't wait for them to explain. He stormed across the street. "Check under his damn house. There's a child down there." The deputy held up a hand. "Sir, step back." Boone turned his head slightly, just enough for Marcus to see something flicker across his face. Not shock, not fear, Recognition. Denise came up behind him, her voice trembling. If she's under there, if it's her. An officer and the sheriff pried the wooden crate aside. They lifted the hatch. Flashlights were drawn. Moments later, a deputy dropped to one knee and spoke softly into the darkness. "It's okay, honey. We're here to help you. Can you come out for us?" A pause. Then, movement. A girl emerged slowly from the crawl space, barefoot, her dress too short for her frame. Her hair was matted, her face pale, but her eyes, they were the same. Marcus fell to his knees. Denise gasped, one hand covering her mouth. "Serenity?" Marcus whispered, barely breathing. The girl looked at them, blinking into the light. "My name is Hope," she said. "My daddy says my real name doesn't matter anymore." The sheriff turned to Boone. "Sir, you're under arrest." Boone didn't flinch, just stared across the street where Marcus had spent 7 years staring back. The hallway smelled like antiseptic and plastic-wrapped grief. Marcus sat outside the exam room, his leg bouncing, hands clasped between his knees. Denise sat beside him, fingers still trembling from the moment their daughter, no, the girl, stepped into the light and didn't recognize them. Her name was Serenity Riley, but she called herself Hope because he told her to. Across from them, Detective Renee Garza flipped through her notepad, pen poised, face unreadable. She was calm but firm, her voice the kind that demanded truth from trauma. "She didn't recognize either of you?" she asked again. Marcus shook his head slowly. "Not even a flicker. She looked right at us like we were strangers." "She is different," Denise added quietly. "Older, of course, but her posture, her voice, she didn't even flinch when the sheriff put Boone in cuffs." Detective Garza scribbled something, then looked up. "That's common in long-term abductions, disassociation, identity erosion. It sounds like Boone used psychological conditioning, maybe something like Stockholm Syndrome." Marcus winced. "She thinks he's her father." "She doesn't remember her real name," Denise whispered, holding back tears. "She doesn't remember us." Garza leaned forward, tone softer now. "The important thing is she's alive, and she's safe. The rest, we work through, slowly." Marcus stared at the exam room door. Inside, doctors were running tests, blood work, reflexes, bone density, trying to quantify the damage done by years in darkness. "How long was she down there?" he asked. "We think the whole time," Garza replied. "Neighbors say Boone never had visitors, never traveled. The bunker had a toilet, generator, ventilation, enough rations for a year or more, and the walls were covered in drawings." Denise looked up. "Drawings?" Garza nodded. Childlike, stick figures, some military symbols. Boone was prepping her for something. Marcus's jaw tightened. He was building his own soldier. The door opened. A nurse stepped out, smiling gently. "She's asking for her father." The word stabbed like glass. Garza stood. "Which one?" The nurse hesitated. "She just said Dad. But she pointed to you," she added, nodding toward Marcus. His heart thudded. He stood, legs suddenly shaky. "She's alert?" Denise asked. "Yes, but fragile," the nurse said. "Her vitals are stable, but mentally, she's confused. She's been told a lot of lies. Be gentle." Marcus stepped inside. The room was sterile, bright, and too white. In the center, Serenity sat on the hospital bed with a blanket over her knees. She looked up at him with wide, uncertain eyes. "You came back," she said quietly. Marcus froze. "Boone said if anything ever happened to him, you'd find me." His throat went dry. "He told you that?" She nodded. "He said there might be imposters, enemies, but I'd know the real one because he'd come alone." Marcus sat slowly in the chair by her bed. "What else did he tell you about me?" "That you were a traitor," she said, her voice flat. "That you gave up the mission. That you didn't love me enough to stay." He felt like the floor tilted beneath him. "Serenity." "My name is Hope," she said quickly. "No," he said gently but firmly. "Your name is Serenity Riley. You were born 6 years before you vanished. Your mom and I, we threw you a watermelon-themed birthday party. You wanted a puppy named Flash. We searched for you for years." She looked down at her hands as if they didn't belong to her. "That's not what I remember." "Because he didn't let you remember," Marcus said. "He took your name, your past. He made you forget." "I don't know what's real," she whispered. "He told me the world was on fire, that people like you were dangerous, but you don't feel dangerous." He reached into his wallet and pulled out an old, faded photo. Serenity, age 5, grinning with cake frosting on her nose. Denise's arms around her, Marcus behind them, holding up bunny ears. She stared at it. I dream about that cake sometimes, she said. He nodded, barely holding it together. Because it happened. The door opened again. Denise stood in the threshold, afraid to step in, afraid to break the moment. Serenity's eyes flicked to her. Is that my mom? Marcus didn't speak, he just nodded. Serenity stared for a long time. Then she whispered, she looks like me. Denise's voice cracked. You look like you, still, even now. The girl's lips trembled. I don't remember you, she said, but I want to. Marcus reached out, resting his hand gently on hers. Then we start from there. Serenity, no, Hope, as she still reflexively called herself, slept under observation that night. Doctors wanted to monitor her breathing and keep her on IV fluids. Marcus and Denise refused to leave the hospital, spending the night in stiff plastic chairs outside her room, speaking only in whispers, afraid that too much sound might shatter the fragile thread now reconnecting them to their daughter. At 6:13 a.m., Detective Garza returned. We got the warrant, she said, holding up a folded document. We're going in. Marcus stood immediately. Into Boone's house? No, Garza replied. Under it. The crawlspace beneath Gerald Boone's house wasn't just a bunker. It was a world, a warped, suffocating world. Marcus stepped into it slowly, ducking under a low concrete beam. A flashlight cut through the dark. He expected dust and rot, but what he saw was order. Everything was meticulously clean. The bunker stretched longer than it should have, maybe 30 feet. The walls were lined with thick soundproof padding. A handmade cot sat neatly in one corner with a thin floral sheet. Beside it, a bookshelf, stacked with survival manuals, old children's books, and dozens of handmade notebooks, their pages covered in Boone's spidery handwriting. The back wall had been painted sky blue. Clouds, trees, a crude drawing of a sun in the upper left corner, the kind of thing a father might make for a child's playroom. Only this wasn't a playroom. This was a prison disguised as safety. There were no windows. A corkboard held dozens of pinned-up drawings, all done in colored pencil. All by the same hand, childlike but practiced. Marcus stepped closer. One picture showed a woman with flames behind her. The word enemy was scribbled in red crayon beneath her feet. Another showed a man, bald, thin, a scar on his cheek, saluting in front of a bunker entrance. A smiling girl stood beside him, her arms raised like a soldier reporting for duty. Another, 3 stick figures holding hands, one was crossed out, and another, a small brown house, their house, with a massive red X drawn through it. Denise gasped behind him. He made her erase us. He reprogrammed her, Marcus muttered. Fed her these lies for years. Garza walked carefully along the edges, documenting the layout. He isolated her physically, emotionally, psychologically, standard tactics for long-term captors. But this is something else. He wasn't just hiding her. He was building a belief system, a whole world she couldn't question. There were cameras in the ceiling. No wires, wireless signal, likely synced to a monitor inside the main house. He watched her, Garza said, all the time. They reached the far corner of the room, a hatch built into the floor. It took effort to pry open. Inside was a locked chest. Garza knelt and picked the lock with ease. Inside were dozens of laminated photos, birth certificates, newspaper clippings, a small pink sandal. Marcus swallowed. That's hers. She was wearing those that day. Denise reached in and pulled out one photo, Serenity at age 5, sitting in front of a birthday cake. It had a dog on it. He kept everything, she whispered. Everything he stole. There was one more object at the bottom, a toy walkie-talkie, the kind you buy in a 2-pack. Marcus picked it up slowly. A piece of masking tape ran across the top. In faded Sharpie, it read, Mission Control, Hope. Later that morning, they sat with Serenity again. She was sitting up in bed, sipping orange juice slowly like she wasn't sure she deserved it. We went to the place you lived, Marcus said gently. Under his house. Serenity looked up sharply. Did you see my wall? He nodded. We did. The drawings, the books, the sky you painted. Her face went still. He said the world was gone. He said we were the last ones left. That above ground people would hurt me. That I was chosen. Denise leaned forward. And do you still believe him? Serenity hesitated. I don't know. Sometimes when I close my eyes I hear his voice. It tells me to run, to hide, to fight. Marcus held up the walkie-talkie. Do you remember this? Her face changed, softened. He gave that to me when I turned 9. We only had one, but he pretended someone was answering. Marcus stared. He was pretending to be you. He was creating a world where he was never alone. Tears filled her eyes. But I was alone. Denise reached out slowly, her hand resting on her daughter's. Not anymore. That evening, as they left the hospital to get a few hours of sleep, Marcus paused outside her room. He looked through the glass. Serenity, his daughter, sat cross-legged on the bed, holding the old walkie-talkie, pressing the button like it still worked. "Mission Control," she whispered. "Can anyone hear me?" There was only silence. And then, "We hear you, Serenity," Marcus said softly just beyond the door. "We've been waiting a long time." The town of Elmsbrook hadn't made the news in over a decade until Serenity Riley emerged from beneath a house with someone else's name. By noon the next day, reporters were parked outside the hospital. Drones buzzed above the neighborhood. National networks picked up the story. Girl found alive after 7 years in neighbor's bunker. Southern prepper held black child underground in alleged survivalist plot. She thought the world had ended. Now she's free. Denise muted the TV in the hospital waiting room, her hands shaking slightly. She was tired of strangers owning their daughter's story before Serenity could even reclaim it. Marcus walked in carrying a small tray, 2 coffees and a fruit cup Serenity had asked for. "She's awake again," he said. "Asked if we had any old music she used to like." Denise's eyes welled. "She remembers?" Marcus hesitated. "Not clearly, but she said her head feels like a locked room, like there's light leaking under the door." He handed her the tray, then sat beside her. They watched the news in silence for a moment before Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "They're going to tear her apart, Dee. They're going to treat her like a symbol, a headline." Denise nodded. "But she's not. She's a child." A knock on the waiting room door. Detective Garza again, sleeves rolled up, tablet in hand. "We've got something," she said, voice low. "You might want to see this." At the precinct, Boone sat in an interrogation room, hands cuffed, eyes vacant. He hadn't spoken more than 5 words since his arrest, and not a single one of them was remorse. On the screen in front of Marcus and Denise, a surveillance video played. Boone in his kitchen 2 weeks ago, setting out 2 plates, one adult-sized, one child-sized. He poured orange juice into a plastic cup with "Hope" written in marker. "He fed her well," Garza said. "Never hit her from what we can tell. But what he did was worse." She clicked to the next file, audio. A recorded session from a hidden microphone planted years ago in Boone's basement during an unrelated noise complaint. It had never been reviewed until now. Boone's voice, gentle. "Remember what happens if you leave, Hope. They'll take you. They'll make you forget the mission." A child's voice, hesitant. "But what if they're not bad?" Boone, harsher now. "That's what they want you to think. That's how they win." Denise covered her mouth. Garza paused the file. He rehearsed lies like lullabies, trained her to fear anyone who wasn't him. Marcus stared at the screen. He never intended to give her back. Not ever. "No," Garza confirmed. "And there's more. We traced his supply purchases. A year ago, he ordered another cot, another child-sized toothbrush. He was preparing for more." Marcus's hands curled into fists. "He was building an army," he said bitterly, "out of stolen children." Garza didn't deny it. That night, Elmsbrook changed. Neighbors knocked on the Rileys' door, some to offer food, others to apologize. Quietly, ashamed, a few cried. "I always thought something was off about that man," one older woman said. "But who listens to a gut feeling anymore?" "We failed her," someone else whispered. Marcus accepted the casseroles. Denise thanked them politely. But neither forgot the looks, the ones they got 7 years ago. The silence when they begged for help. The way the town moved on, called it a tragedy, then buried the discomfort and turned the page. Serenity had lived under their feet the whole time. At the hospital, Serenity slept fitfully. In her dreams, Boone's voice still echoed, but now it was softer, fading. There were new sounds too, sounds she hadn't heard in years. Laughter, plates clinking, a woman humming off-key. She dreamed of a backyard she didn't remember, green grass, a red balloon, someone calling her name, Serenity. The name didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like a question. She stirred under the sheets, and for the first time in 7 years, she whispered it aloud. "Serenity." It was nearly midnight when Marcus couldn't sleep. He found himself seated at the dining room table again, surrounded by things that didn't belong to him. Boone's notebooks, the walkie-talkie, 2 printed aerial photos of the crawl space, and a laminated floor plan of the bunker the police had mapped out earlier that day. Denise was asleep upstairs. Serenity was still at the hospital, under 24-hour psychological care. Marcus wanted to be there too, but he'd promised to rest. That was a lie. He hadn't closed his eyes in 32 hours. He opened the largest notebook. Boone's handwriting covered the pages in block letters, a survivalist's diary blended with a manifesto. But something in the margins caught his eye this time. A name. Avery. Not Serenity, not Hope. Just that one word, written 5 times on the same page. Once in red ink, underlined. Marcus froze. He flipped backward. Nothing. Forward, then another mention. Avery is next. Must expand before winter. She's close. She trusts me already. A chill crawled up his spine. He reached for his phone and called Garza. I found another name, he said the moment she picked up. Avery. He wrote, she's next. Garza didn't hesitate. On my way. Stay where you are. By 2 a.m., Garza was back at the house with a team. They pulled every journal, every drawing every Noon had ever hoarded, and then they found it, in the back pocket of a survival manual on civil unrest. A map, hand-drawn, crude. It showed their street, Boone's house, the woods behind it, then another house 3 doors down, a red circle around it. Avery Delmont, age 9. She was a foster child. Lived with the Holloways since late summer, quiet, polite, homeschooled. Rarely seen outside except for late afternoon walks with her foster mom. Garza called it in immediately. Officers were dispatched to the Delmont house at 3:10 a.m. They knocked politely first, then firmly, then pounded. No answer. Finally, warrant in hand, they breached. Avery was inside, unharmed, asleep. But what they found was enough to make Marcus want to tear Boone apart with his bare hands. Photos, in a drawer beside her bed. Boone had taken them from afar, playing in the yard, walking to the mailbox. One inside a grocery store. How had he gotten that close? A small radio, pre-programmed to a single frequency. A letter, unsent, but clearly ready. Avery, they don't understand you like I do. When you're ready, I'll take you to safety. There's a place where no one can hurt us. You'll be a leader. Your new name will be Grace. Dad Garza brought the evidence to Marcus the next morning. He wasn't just prepping Serenity, he was recruiting, building his own little army. Marcus read the letter 3 times. How close did he get to taking her? Garza sighed. Too close. Her foster mom said a man had offered to fix their backyard fence for free last week. He claimed to be a retired contractor. She thought he was just being neighborly. Marcus's hands tightened around the paper. He was still hunting, even while Serenity was beneath his house. He had plans, Garza said. Dozens of pages detailing how to convert children into loyalists, to erase pasts, to overwrite identity. He called it the harvest. Marcus looked up sharply. Then this isn't over. No, Garza agreed. This was just the beginning. At the hospital, Serenity was doing better. She had asked for real clothes. She wanted a mirror. When Denise sat beside her that afternoon, Serenity turned and asked something unexpected. Was I important before? Denise smiled softly. You were the most important thing in our lives. You still are. Serenity hesitated, then whispered, he said I was chosen, but I think he just didn't want to be alone. Denise leaned closer. He made you believe you were special because he wanted control, but the truth is, you were always special, because you were loved. Serenity looked out the window. I want to remember all of it. You will, Denise said gently. One piece at a time. But even as she said it, something gnawed at her. If there was one Avery, how many more were out there? The hospital mirror was small, mounted above the sink, its edges chipped, the glass faintly warped from years of industrial cleaning. Serenity stood in front of it, fingers curled around the cold porcelain basin. She stared at her reflection like it belonged to someone else. The girl in the mirror was thin, her collarbones sharp beneath the fabric of the donated sweatshirt. Her curls were shorter than they used to be. Her eyes had a constant flicker, like someone who'd spent years flinching from shadows. This was her face now, but it didn't feel like her. Behind her, Denise stood quietly. She'd offered to help brush Serenity's hair, but Serenity said she wanted to try herself, wanted to see. She dragged the brush through one knot, then another. I look older than I feel, she murmured. You've been through more than most adults, Denise said gently. Serenity didn't answer right away. Then, he told me mirrors were dangerous, that the world could reach through them. That they were how they watched us. Denise swallowed hard. Who did he mean by they? Anyone not like us. Not in the bunker. Serenity kept brushing. He said they'd steal my soul if I stared too long. Denise stepped closer. Do you believe that now? Serenity paused. She looked at her reflection again, long and hard. No, I don't. She handed the brush to her mother and whispered, Can you finish? Meanwhile, across town, Marcus stood in Boone's cleared-out bunker again. Garza had invited him, said there was something he needed to see, something he might be able to explain better than anyone else. They had uncovered another journal, tucked deep in a hollowed-out air vent. This one was different. No survivalist manifestos, no rants, just drawings, Serenity's drawings. Garza spread them out on a folding table. We didn't find these before, hidden pretty deep. Marcus flipped through them slowly. At first, they were what he expected, stick figures, rough images of Boone, the bunker, the dog. But midway through the stack, the style changed, became more detailed, more emotional. There was one of a house with yellow shutters, their house. Another of a woman with short curly hair holding a child. Another of a man holding a balloon. That's me, Marcus said, voice hoarse. That's from her 5th birthday. She remembered, Garza said. Even when he tried to erase everything, she remembered. At the bottom of the pile, one final drawing, a shattered mirror. Inside it, 2 faces. One was Boone, the other Marcus. Except the Boone face was twisted wrong, covered in black scratch marks. And the Marcus face had a single word beneath it, real. That night, Serenity asked for her old name. Not out loud, not to anyone's face. But she wrote it in a notebook the hospital counselor had given her. Over and over, Serenity, Serenity. Serenity Riley. I am not hope, not anymore. At 2:17 a.m., Boone finally cracked. In the county jail, he asked to speak to Marcus. They tried to refuse at first. Garza didn't trust the man and Marcus didn't want to see him, but Marcus insisted. I need to look him in the eye, he said. I need to hear it from him. They brought him to a private room. Boone was handcuffed to the table, thinner than Marcus remembered. Hair disheveled, eyes alert, sharp. You came, Boone said with a small smile. I always knew you would. Marcus sat across from him, said nothing. Boone leaned forward. She's mine, you know, not by blood, but by bond. You kidnapped her, Marcus said flatly. I saved her, Boone said, eyes alight. The world would have chewed her up, spit her out. I gave her discipline, purpose, identity. You gave her fear, Marcus snapped. You locked her underground and called it love. Boone's voice darkened. You let her wander off while you grilled meat and laughed with friends. You left the gate open. The words hit like a slap, but Marcus didn't flinch. You had no right, he said. You don't get to blame us for your sickness. Boone studied him. She's better with me. Marcus leaned in. She chose her name today. Not the one you gave her, the one we did. Boone's face flickered for the first time. She remembers? He asked, the question small. Marcus stood slowly, enough to know who the monster was. Back at the hospital, Serenity lay awake. She held the walkie-talkie in her hands again. It didn't work. It never had. But now she pressed the button and whispered not to Boone, but to herself. Serenity, that's my name. She looked out the window. The world was still there. Broken, yes, loud and complicated, but real. And for the first time in 7 years, she was ready to be part of it. By the end of the week, Serenity's name was everywhere. National news anchors spoke it with cautious reverence. Her face appeared on fundraisers, talk shows, and viral hashtags. Strangers debated her trauma online, speculated about her condition, argued over whether she should be kept out of the public eye or become a voice for survivors. Serenity Riley had gone missing at 6 years old. Now at 13, the world acted like they owned her. Inside her hospital room, she stayed off the internet. But she heard the whispers, the way nurses spoke just outside the door, the way reporters swarmed outside the building with long lenses and smug sympathy. Marcus was the one who told her. There's going to be a press conference, he said gently, sitting beside her bed. The police are holding it. They're going to talk about Boone, about what he did. We don't have to go. You don't have to say anything. Serenity looked at him for a long time. Then she said something that made Marcus's heart stop. Will people think I wanted to stay with him? He blinked. No. Of course not. Why would you even think that? Because I didn't run, she whispered. Because I believed him, for so long. Marcus leaned forward, gripping her hand. Serenity, you were a child. He made you believe him. That doesn't mean you're guilty. That means he's a monster. She looked down. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I mess it up and everyone hates me? You don't owe anyone anything, Marcus said. But if you want to speak, she didn't answer right away. Then softly, I want to say my name. Out loud, like it belongs to me again. The press conference was held at the Elmsbrook Community Center. Police stood behind the podium, flanked by investigators and trauma specialists. The cameras clicked. The lights were harsh. Then came the unexpected. A protest. Just across the street, behind a barrier, a group of men in tactical gear and camo jackets waved hand-painted signs. Boone was right. Protect our own. She was safer with him. Marcus saw them first. Garza spotted them too, muttered something into her radio, and nodded for more patrol to move in. But the damage was done. The world saw it. Even now, after everything, there were people defending Boone. When Serenity and Denise arrived through the back entrance, Marcus met them at the hallway. Stay behind the curtain for now, he told her. We'll pull out if anything feels wrong. But Serenity stood straighter than he'd ever seen her. No, she said. I want to see. When she stepped onto the stage, silence fell. She wore a simple blue sweater and jeans, no makeup, no styling, just herself. She approached the mic and the room held its breath. My name is Serenity Riley, she said clearly. I am not hope. I am not a project. I am not broken. She paused. The man who took me said the world was dangerous, that I had to hide, that I wasn't strong enough to live up here. Her hands trembled slightly. But I'm here now, and I remember who I was. I remember my real parents, and I am not afraid of the world anymore. Behind her, Marcus's vision blurred. Denise was crying, and across the street the protest signs lowered. Even monsters have followers. But truth echoes louder. After the press conference, they didn't go home. Instead, Serenity asked to visit her old bedroom. Marcus had kept it mostly the same. Stuffed animals on the shelves, faded posters, a drawer full of toys she'd long outgrown. She stepped inside and ran her hand across the bedspread. It smells like crayons, she said. Your mom used to spray your pillows with lavender, Marcus replied. Serenity picked up a stuffed dog from the corner. Is this Flash? Marcus smiled. It is. She held it for a moment, then sat on the edge of the bed. I'm not ready to move back in, she said honestly. You don't have to, Denise said gently. We'll take it slow, one step at a time. Serenity nodded. But maybe I could stay a few hours, just to feel it again. Marcus squeezed her hand. We'd love that. That night, Garza called Marcus with an update. We found another name in Boone's files. A boy, 11, different state. He'd already made contact with the family through a fake outreach program. We stopped it in time. Marcus gripped the phone. So he had more. A list, Garza confirmed. At least 6 children. Different towns, all vulnerable, all targeted. Marcus exhaled. It wasn't just about survival, Garza added. Boone didn't just want to hide from the world. He wanted to replace it. Marcus looked toward Serenity's room. Then we stop him from doing it ever again. The following morning, Serenity asked for something that surprised them both. I want to go back, she said quietly over breakfast. To the house. His house. Denise nearly dropped her coffee. Sweetheart, are you sure? You don't need to prove anything to anyone. I'm not trying to prove anything, Serenity said. I just need to see it, with my own eyes. Not through memories, not through fear. Marcus hesitated. You don't have to do it alone. She looked at him, eyes steadier than he expected. I don't want to go in. Just stand outside, that's all. They drove there in silence. Boone's house had been sealed off by police tape. Windows boarded, grass uncut. It already looked abandoned, like it wanted to be forgotten. Serenity stepped out of the car and stared at the porch. I used to think that front door led to a safe world, she murmured. But it was never about keeping bad things out. It was about keeping me in. She turned slightly and pointed to the side. That's where the bunker entrance is. Denise moved closer, not saying a word, just being near. I used to watch your house through the vent, Serenity whispered. Your porch light would come on at 7:04 every night. I thought maybe someone left it on for me. Marcus blinked, his throat tight. We did. She stepped forward, kneeling slightly to peer into the vent opening. It had been covered with a steel grate now, bolted shut, but she still stared through the holes. I counted the cars that passed, I made up names for the birds. I played guess the weather based on what the dog looked like when he came in. It was the only world I had. She paused. I thought I'd feel angry, but mostly, I feel empty. Marcus lowered beside her. That's normal. You don't owe that place any emotion. It took enough already. They stood and turned back to the car. Then Serenity stopped. There's one more thing, she said. I left something behind. With Garza's approval, a forensics officer escorted Serenity and her parents into the house later that afternoon. The living room smelled like mildew and old wood. Papers still covered the floor. Maps, pamphlets, catalogs of emergency food. But Serenity led them through, without hesitation. Down the narrow hallway, into the kitchen, and there, behind the tall cabinet where she once kept her hidden box of crayons, she found it. A notebook, purple cover, her name, Hope, written on the front. But when she opened it, the first page had something else. I think my name used to be Serenity. She clutched it to her chest. I wrote that a year ago. I didn't even know why. Marcus swallowed. Some part of you still remembered. She flipped a few pages in. There were drawings, stick figures with different faces. One had Marcus's eyes. One had Denise's hair. None were labeled, but they looked like family. And at the bottom of one page, in shaky letters, if I ever get out, I want to find the girl with the scar under her eye. I think she's real. I think she saved me once. Serenity froze. I don't remember writing this. Who's the girl? Denise asked gently. I don't know, Serenity whispered. But I think I saw her, in a dream. Or maybe in the bunker. Just once. I don't know. Garza, who'd been standing quietly by the door, spoke up. We've been tracking someone. A runaway who was reported missing 6 years ago. She matches that description. Scar under her left eye. Disappeared from a foster facility in Alabama. She's still missing. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You think she might have been in the bunker too? We don't know, Garza said. But if Serenity remembered her, maybe she made it out, or maybe she left something behind. That night, Serenity couldn't sleep. She sat on the window bench of the hospital room, notebook in her lap, looking at the unfinished sketch of the girl. She felt brave, Serenity whispered to herself, like she wasn't supposed to be there, like she was trying to help me. She picked up a pencil, added a scarf around the girl's neck. Then a lock of hair falling over one eye. She titled the page, The Girl Who Didn't Disappear, because deep down, Serenity hoped that maybe, just maybe, she was still out there. And maybe Serenity wasn't the only one who had escaped. The photo arrived in a manila envelope, unsigned, unmarked, slid beneath Detective Garza's office door early that morning. It was grainy, like a still pulled from an old security feed, but it was unmistakable. 2 girls, standing side by side in what appeared to be Boone's bunker. One was Serenity, younger, thinner, her hair longer and eyes wider. The other had a small scar beneath her left eye, a handmade cloth tied around her neck, and a look in her eyes that said she didn't belong there. Garza brought it straight to Marcus. She's real, he said, staring at the photo. Garza nodded. She was there, and based on Boone's journals, not for long. She handed him another page, this one from a torn notebook covered behind a false wall. Boone's handwriting again. Subject number 2 resisted conditioning, strong will, uncooperative, attempted escape through ventilation shaft, recovered but wound left scar, began showing signs of defiance, scratched hope during controlled session, removed from protocol, relocated. Relocated to where? Marcus asked, voice low. Garza looked grim. That's what we're trying to find out. When they showed the photo to Serenity, she didn't react at first. She stared at it for a long time. Then, she told me her name wasn't important, just said, don't forget me. Denise reached for her hand. You didn't. Serenity shook her head. She helped me when I tried to climb the ladder once. She told me there was no war. I thought she was lying. Boone said she was a disruptor. He said she had to go. Denise's stomach turned. Where would he have taken her? Boone owned a storage unit, Garza said. We're getting the warrant now. He also worked for a construction company briefly, had access to multiple abandoned sites. Marcus stood. We're wasting time. If she's alive, we're moving, Garza said. We've put her picture into the national database, alerted every missing child agency in 3 states. But Boone, he didn't leave trails unless he wanted them found. At the hospital later that day, Serenity asked for something unusual. I want to go back into the bunker. Denise paled. Absolutely not. But Serenity was calm. steady. There's something down there I need to see, something I've been remembering, but only in pieces. Marcus hesitated. We'll go with you. You won't be alone. The return to the bunker was suffocating, the air stale, the silence too heavy. Flashlights danced across the foam-lined walls and padded ceiling. Nothing had changed, except Serenity. She wasn't that girl anymore. She walked slowly to the far wall. There used to be another cot, over there. She pointed to a blank section of floor, and a shelf, with books she brought from her old school. She used to read to me. Denise knelt beside her. Are you remembering her? She said her real name was Gabby, or maybe Gabriella, but she said Boone called her 2. Like a number. Marcus looked toward Garza, who was taking frantic notes. Serenity stepped forward and pressed her hand to the padded wall. There's something behind this. A search team pried open the panel. Behind it, a crawl space. Shallow, full of dust. And in the corner, a single object wrapped in cloth. Serenity reached in and pulled it out. It was a child's hoodie, purple, torn at the sleeve, faded letters on the back, property of Langston Academy. Denise gasped. That's a school in Montgomery. It shut down years ago. Garza was already making calls. Serenity stared at the hoodie. She wore this the night they took her away, she said quietly. She gave me the scarf around her neck, said it would keep me brave. Later that evening, Garza called with confirmation. Gabriela Sanchez, missing from Montgomery 6 years ago, age 10 at the time. Parents reported she ran away from foster care. Case went cold after 3 months. Marcus gripped the phone. She was here. Garza didn't hesitate, and we think we know where Boone relocated her. An old storm shelter off Highway 8. He owned it through a shell company. Officers are en route. Denise closed her eyes, whispering a prayer. Serenity stood at the window again, her notebook open. She drew the scarf, the scar, and added one more word beneath the figure of the girl with the sharp eyes and brave stance. Survivor. At 9:43 p.m., officers breached the storm shelter. It was empty, but lived in. Mattress, food, water, drawings on the walls, and scrawled in large black marker on the back of the door. You found her. Find me next. The house was quiet, not the silence of absence, but of peace. For the first time in years, the Riley home felt whole again. There were new sounds, Denise humming in the kitchen, the soft shuffle of slippers on hardwood, and upstairs, behind a half-open door, the gentle scratch of pencil on paper. Serenity was drawing again, not from memory, not from fear, but from choice. It had been 3 weeks since they found the storm shelter. Gabriella wasn't there, but the evidence was undeniable. She'd survived, longer than anyone thought possible. Her handwriting matched notes found in Boone's early files. Her fingerprints confirmed what Serenity already knew. She had been real. Boone's trial was fast-tracked. The evidence overwhelming. His silence was broken only once, when the court read Serenity's full name aloud. Then he smiled. Serenity never looked at him. Not once. She didn't need to. The world now knew what he had done, and what he couldn't take away. Detective Garza had stayed in touch. She visited the house often now, not as an investigator, but as someone who had come to care. We've widened the search grid for Gabriella, she told Serenity during one of their afternoon walks. We think she's using a different name, but she's smart, resourceful. We'll find her. Serenity nodded. I think she wants to be found, just not all at once. Garza smiled. Healing takes time. They stopped by the pond where Serenity used to feed ducks as a child. She watched the water ripple, a quiet breeze brushing her face. She saved me, Serenity said, not by breaking us out, but by telling me I could still remember who I was. Garza nodded. And you did. That night, the family gathered in the living room. Marcus had lit a fire. Denise brought down a box of photos, ones Serenity had never seen before. Birthday parties, school plays, sleepy morning selfies. Serenity studied each image carefully, smiling more than she cried. I look happy, she said. You were, Denise replied, and you will be again. They sat together for hours, talking, listening, stitching back pieces of time that had once been lost. Before bed, Serenity stood in front of the mirror one last time. She picked up the purple hoodie they'd found in Boone's crawl space, the one that had belonged to Gabriella, and slipped it over her shoulders. It was too big, but it felt like armor. Then she opened her notebook. On the final page, she wrote, My name is Serenity Riley. I was taken, but I am not broken. I will remember the girl with the scarf. I will live for us both. The next morning, she asked to enroll in school. Real school. With other kids, with noise and lockers and normal. Marcus and Denise said yes through quiet, grateful tears. And when Serenity filled out her registration form, she wrote her full name without hesitation. Not the one Boone gave her, not the number she was almost reduced to, but the name she was born with. Serenity. Whole again. And finally, free. The end.